everyone. Welcome to the fourth episode of the Adopted podcast. Joining me today is a very special friend, someone I've known for many, many years. We actually did undergraduate together in IIT Kharagpur, and he was a prodigy back then. He was I believe he was a gold medalist in Kharagpur. And over the course of the many years, he's been an entrepreneur. He's founded two companies, and he's been an engineering leader at very large organizations like Meta, Cohesity, Microsoft. So, Krishna, welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you here.
Very excited to be here.
Yeah. We would love to hear a little bit more about your background, Krishna.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, we obviously did our undergrad together back in Kharagpur, which is kind of pulled up in the end of the world and you don't have much else to do. So great place to make new friends. So I'm glad we met there. Since then, I have been all over the map. I started two companies. One was called Capillary. It was in the CRM and marketing automation loyalty space. And then another one called Taro. Taro was in the food tech space. It was a marketplace for chefs. I think what's been fascinating is both of these were very different, but both were like outstanding journeys, something I enjoyed myself a lot. Of course, in Capillary, I was paired with another of my batchmates from IIT Kharagpur, Anish. And it was very special because we went through a lot of early meandering to actually figuring out a very strong product market fit and then hitting it out of the park with, growing internationally, raising money from top marquee VCs, etc. Now it's a global business. I mean, we're 1,000 people. I moved on, but I mean, Anish has carried on the torch dramatically well. And, it's an outstanding story. Hopefully we'll get to see it, public sometime soon. Anyway, I did my two startup journeys and said, hey, I've done a lot of 0 to 1. I want to go see something different. I want to go see scale. So I landed at a company called Cohesity. Cohesity was, it's a highly technical product. It's a file system and a data management product around it. So I was definitely over my skis, especially after the Taro experience where I was cooking food at scale, so to say. So it was very interesting. Lots of learnings, outstanding technology, great set of people, etc. And then I would say the last few years I've been at Meta, where I've been part of this journey called messaging ads. So think of you click on an ad, instead of going to a website, it takes you to a message thread on WhatsApp, Messenger, or Instagram. It's a $10 billion plus business at Meta, so it's sizable. So I think just the amount of scale, how you execute and build, run your strategy at scale, it's been incredible learning experience, at least for me. I would say the other very fascinating thing is Meta is the place where I saw a lot of AI and ML at scale. I mean, it's been obviously a big leader there, but also, I think given we were in the messaging space, we were quote unquote, I think the beneficiaries for a lot of the recent AI advances. So it's been incredible to kind of see that and see usage of some of that AI technologies, back at Meta. So that's my story professionally. Personally, based in the Bay Area, two kids, 4 and 8, keep us very busy, running around all the time. I often joke that my real job is to drive them around, and I'm an Uber driver. I'm a technologist by day and an Uber driver in the evenings. So that's me.
Yeah, we're all glorified Uber drivers for our kids. So, I mean, we're all in the same boat there. So, Krishna, fascinating set of diverse experiences is, what came to my mind when you were talking about all of these. You started a B2C company, a B2B company, and then you've worked in like all kinds of large tech enterprises. So can you talk more specifically about, your last few roles, maybe probably just touch upon Cohesity and Meta, and how did they shape up your experiences in life and where you are today?
Makes sense. So I would say, I think the Cohesity, as I mentioned, it's a highly technical product, a very, very strong engineering culture. As a founder, I worked with, I grew my team, I built the culture, etc. I think going and seeing that culture at a much larger pace was fascinating for me, and a great learning experience personally. I would say it's also a company which has some of the largest enterprise clients in the world. You name the biggest banks in the world, the biggest automakers of the world, they're all customers of Cohesity. So I think just having come from a place where in the past I've worked mid-market to larger enterprises and a lot of figuring out on my own, I think going and seeing best practices around that was absolutely fascinating from that perspective. I think it's also a highly customer obsessed culture, both in terms of doing discovery, in terms of delivering value to the customer, as well as in terms of following up. And if something goes wrong, going fixing it. I think Cohesity definitely sets a very high on. When I go back and look at Meta, I think Meta is a very different culture uh, and a very, very fascinating place. It's extremely extremely data driven, extremely impact driven. In fact, a lot of people find it shocking and surprising. But, I run a large engineering team. But the way we evaluate impact of our engineering team, even evaluate performance of engineers, all based on actual metrics impact and the amount of revenue we drive. If we are running behind on revenue in a particular quarter, we go figure out from the engineering side what we can do to go meet the shortfall. So it is an absolutely fascinating culture. I think the fact that you can connect a piece of code that an engineer ships to actual top line revenue impact that you are seeing on the business, I think is an outstanding piece of infrastructure, and it enables so much different quality of decision making. It's incredible. The other thing, of course, is given it's such a large company, obviously Meta has been, Zuck's been the trailblazer on the AI side. But I think we've had very high quality ML and AI expertise within the company for the longest time. And like I was mentioning, I think for me, that was a great learning experience, because I think prior to Meta, my understanding of what AI could do, and post Meta, my understanding of what AI can do is very different. Of course, AI has evolved, but I think just seeing actual real applications has been fascinating.
Yeah, I would say you were living the dream. Like as AI was getting built and defined, like foundational models, you were there at Meta, seeing the pace of execution, and must have been fascinating working there. Let's move on a little bit to entrepreneurship. You have started two technology companies, one B2B and one B2C. Starting one company is difficult. Starting two is immensely difficult. And a B2B and B2C company, I can't even think about that, right? So can you share a little.
Some people will call it foolhardy, but that's me.
But I'm sure you have such rich experiences in those companies. Can you share like some of the learnings from your entrepreneur journey?
Yeah. So I think the two most important things that come to mind is, one is basically when you think of product market fit, I think that's not like most people think of it like a point in time construct that, okay, you clear the gate and you're through the gate and you're done. It is very much a work in progress, and it's something that you need to keep working on through the life of the company. I think I would say, if I think back about both my experiences, we had to continually keep working on the product market fit. Sometimes the market would change, sometimes the product would change, sometimes the external world changes. I think that is something we have to absolutely keep iterating on. Think back of our time at Capillary, we actually started off with extremely strong product market fit in India. Now, I remember walking into a Forum Mall in Bangalore, and I thought 70% of the customers there were stores where there are customers. So our product market fit was extremely strong. But then as we started to look outside India, we realized some of the basic assumptions break, some of the things change. And I think we have to evolve our product, and we have to evolve our understanding of the market to actually be successful in other markets. So I think it's a journey, and I think you have to keep at it as we go. The second thing I definitely feel is, hey, there's a saying, execution keeps strategy, eats strategy for breakfast. But you are executing with people you're working with. And I think having a very strong team around you is a blessing, because that journey is never linear. It has major ups and downs. I think anybody who's gone through an entrepreneurial journey can probably attest to that. So I think having a very high trust team, somebody you can work very closely with in the trenches, you can out execute, I think is a real blessing, and something we should all celebrate before anything else.
Absolutely. Like you said, it's the journey and it's the people that make a startup. And that's something you have to cherish. The destination is not in our hands, but you just enjoy the process, right? And trust the process. So one thing I forgot to mention, Krishna, when I was introducing you, was that you are also an investor. From what I know, you're a prolific angel investor. So you have a bunch of really good investments. So maybe let's tap into that a little bit. What were some of your learnings from these investments? What makes a company successful versus not?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I've been lucky. I've gotten a chance to work with maybe about 40 odd founders through being a small part of their journey, right? I think what has so the two kinds of companies that truly like I find attractive and I love to be part of the journey is either when the thesis of what the founder is building is truly differentiated, right? Like, hey, they have an insight that really feels like, oh man, this is incredible. I think that is always one. And the second part is I think then you'll meet a set of founders who feel like, hey, these guys will like break through walls and like make things right. So I think those two are the ones that I personally find the most attractive. I would say one interesting learning, at least for me, has been that the hustle and the hunger and the ability of the founder kind of beats out all the initial thesis of it. uh, I was lucky to be early in a company called Innovator, which has done pretty well. I think they managed to crack into US healthcare systems and sell software to them. I think the thing that stands out was they had, I think when they started, there was no reason why those healthcare systems should have been buying. So I think it's the testament to the founders' hustle and their ability to think both straight as well as out of the box to get them where they are. So I think to me that is a huge example. There was another company which actually, interestingly enough, they started a marketplace for salons back in India, and they pivoted into building a pretty large size skincare. Clearly not anything I have any understanding of, and not something that was part of the initial hypothesis or some anything. But I feel that's where the founder's ability to look at information, figure out how to learn from it, be a learning machine, and really keep iterating the thesis and the market that they want to go after is truly precious.
Fantastic. So great insights. Let's move on a little bit into the AI space because that's the talk of the town right now.
Absolutely.
And you have first-hand experience working in a company that's on the front lines of AI, Meta. So let's talk a little bit about that experience. So question for you, like, so when you look at your role in Meta and you stayed there for a few years and look at that role evolve over time, how was that evolution? And at what point did you start getting into AI? And could you talk a little bit more about like what were you doing there in the AI space?
Sure. So, I mean, I would say that even before I joined Meta, I mean, Meta had the Fair Lab and bunch of investments on the AI side. It was known for, AI in the AI circles. But I think the public knowledge about like, or even when I joined, my understanding was, hey, most of the usage of AI is in either recommendation systems in your feed or recommendation systems in ads, right? Optimization systems. And that was absolutely true. Like, obviously, we have some of the world's biggest and largest models around these things. And I think Meta is extremely good. If one thing, figuring out how to price and how to auction and how to capture value. Part, I think that has been fascinating, at least personally for me to see. I think while that's where we started and that's where I saw the early kind of wins, and that those wins have continued to stack and they have continued to compound. It's been incredible to see how many other places actually AI is being used today. I think there's been over the last 4 or 5 years, I think it has completely exploded. And we are using AI in like small little things all over the place, which I think has been fascinating to kind of see. Can't talk about specifics because I think there might be a sensitive information, etc. But I'll give an example, at least in broad strokes. Obviously, AI for ad optimization is straightforward. But I think AI for driving efficiency and productivity of businesses who use our platform, AI for collecting signal, especially with the Apple privacy changes around ATT, etc. Signal loss was a huge deal, and it's public in all our public documents and stuff. Um, the A lot of how we countered that was through the use of ML and AI. So I think that's been incredible to watch. Even in the small, simple things, like I think we end up actually just given the treasure trove of data that Meta has. I think we could use a lot of that. So I think that is what was most exciting and truly a learning experience.
It's awesome. Yeah, there's so many new use cases AI has opened up. I'm very bullish on human productivity improvement overall, right? And
Yes.
taking the race forward. So as an engineering leader, like working on AI, what has been the most important lesson you have learned, and what is the advice you would give to other engineering leaders who are working on AI?
Makes sense. So I think, so here's the underpinning of all this is the AI platform shift is very much in the works, still happening at extremely rapid pace. And I think that's one of the challenges that, we as leaders end up facing. Because when you look at how do you design for an architecture that's going to be obsolete in like 6, and I built something, and we usually want to build for at least a few years. And tech debt is like a big deal in all of our circles. But then all of this is changing so rapid. How do we deal? And I think this is where I guess we as leaders have to be nimble and realize, hey, a lot of what we write right now will probably get thrown away. So instead of worrying about it, I think it's better to embrace it and actually help iterate more quickly, and understand, hey, how can I build the best version now? And then I know in 6 months, I probably have to change the engine. The second thing is also, I think these models are changing and improving so quickly, um, that I think, and this is something I've heard a lot from other people too. Make bets that you think, assume that the models will get 10x better in the next one, and make bets accordingly. In fact, I remember, I think one of the things, like, for instance, I've heard, at least from my friends and other people, that people have struggled with, hey, should I build right now based on the capabilities I see in GPT 3.5? Or should I wait for GPT-4 and then kind of start building? And I guess it's a hard question to answer because we don't know what will improve in 4 months or 6 months. But I think that is a bet you have to make. I mean, I think you definitely have to assume certain capabilities will get significantly better. Like over the last year, it's been a lot around the throughputs and quality and hallucination and stuff like that. I think going forward, it looks like it's going to be a lot of reasoning and multimodal capabilities, etc. So I think of where the puck is going and think of where things will be in 6 to 12 months and build.
Yeah, I think Sam Altman also talks about that. He says that don't bet against AI, don't bet against how these foundation models can improve.
Align yourself to assuming that OpenAI, Anthropic, and all the amazing players in the space, they'll keep improving by 5 to 10x every year, at least for the next couple of years.
Yeah. But I like the way how you said embrace AI, embrace the changes, and reminds me of a saying that said, AI will not replace you, but if you don't use AI, you will definitely get replaced, right? So even as engineers and engineering leaders, I think you have to constantly see, how can I write code using AI? How can I improve? How can I do code reviews? Second, like you have to use AI in every bit and piece of like what you're doing.
It is incredible because, actually just last weekend, I was homesick. So, didn't have much else to do. So I spent a couple of hours playing with Cursor and Claude to actually build an end-to-end application. Now I'm rusty.
Yeah.
If I had to do it by myself, it would have taken like 3-4 days because I would need to go back, pick up, okay, what is the best framework to use today? And, how should I do X? It would have taken me a bunch of time. And here I was, built everything in like 2-3 hours. I think it was an incredible experience. I mean, we have to embrace these changes versus try to resist them.
Wow. So were you able to build a full application in 2-3 hours?
I built a full application, takes a dump of my LinkedIn network graph and spits out people I haven't talked to on LinkedIn messages for say some time, and randomly throw out a few people I can go back and reconnect with. I was just curious. I was wanted to play around.
Fascinating. Awesome. So let's move on a little bit from the engineering discussions to a bit more on the product discussion. Product managers today are all facing a challenge, right?
Yes.
When you have applications, like I'm talking about product managers of application companies, you have your applications out there, you have a ton of users using them, and you have a lot of asks coming from your customers, right? Hey, build this for me, build that for me. How do you balance those? How should one think of balancing those asks with their long-term AI vision, right? On one hand, they hear about agents all the time, and should the app be agentified, and what do you need to do on the AI space? And customers may not be asking for that today. So how do they think about it?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question because I think as the adage goes, you ask people what do you want, and they'll tell you a better horse. So I think I would say there are. I'll break this down into two facets, and which is something that I've also struggled with as I've worked with companies, etc. I think one facet is, hey, how do you listen to customers and figure out, hey, can I build a real product here, or am I building a bunch of either custom things or incremental improvements in what this customer is asking for. Like, is there a shot at really building a true product or a true company? And I think the second thing that happens is once you've gone through this, crossed this chasm, I think the second problem comes is now all these customers are asking me a bunch of like different things or customizations or whatever you want to call it that they need. And how do I build a real product and a high margin business versus like a bunch of, customizations that we're stringing together? So I'll break this down into these two pieces. On the former, I think the way to, at least in my mind, to think is in Clayton Christensen's jobs to be done framework, I think is really top notch. Like, you really have to figure out what are the jobs to be done that this customer needs, and which of these jobs to be done can I do well with technology today. So think of what jobs they have to be done, what are their unmet needs, and figure out what output or outcome they want to achieve versus how they tell you to solve it. Because I think very often they will not have an understanding of either technology or whatever insight you're bringing to the table. So I think figuring out what their needs are, what their jobs are versus how they want to solution it is, I think, definitely. And that's where the creative liberty comes to the founder or product managers or leaders who are working at many of these companies. And I think the other part is you also want to have a strong nose to figure out, hey, of all these jobs to be done, which are the ones we should actually attack? Which one can be productized? Which one can I get to with a reasonable amount of accuracy? Whatever quality bar that the customer might need to meet based on my understanding of technology. So I think that is where, having that training and understanding of the actual current state of the art of the tech and really understanding what is possible is, I think, is it. So, and I think I don't think there's a science here. It's an art and it's an alchemy, which only the founders can kind of create on how to kind of marry these two things together.
Absolutely.
The second part, let's say, okay, I'll pause. I think you have.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that, I love the way you articulated jobs to be done, because that's going back to first principles thinking.
Yes.
And just saying, like, do they need an application in the first place for this job to be done, right? Or do they
Exactly.
need something else?
And I think that's where you answer, do I build a front end? Do I build an agent? Do I build a chatbot? Do I, do auto detection of everything? I think that's where you kind of try to answer those questions on what are the best solutions based on my latest understanding of what is possible today. Now, I think the second issue is, okay, now you got there. Great, congratulations. And, you have a 50% company. It's a real company. It's generating real revenue. You have real customers. But now these customers, somebody wants X, somebody wants Y, somebody wants Z. How do you like manage and kind of look at how do I innovate in this segment versus just keep solving for immediate problems? And I think that's where I would say, so my 0 to 1 experience and that 10 to 100 experience, I think more kicks in. Are you really kind of look at a portfolio approach, look at your investments, break it down into swim lanes, which are around, hey, I'm solving an immediate customer problem, whether it's a feature they need or they ran into issues or whatever. So think of immediate to the next iteration of the product that you want to get. My roadmap for the next 2 to 3 months, 1 quarter, 1 half, whatever cadence you're working at. So these are bigger bets I'm making for the future. I think you have to take that portfolio in between, days, weeks, months, and years, and figure out how do you invest across these different time cycles. And for each of those investments, sometimes you need to have separate teams focused on that. Because I think the time cycle need, you get when somebody's working in the flow, I think they get ingrained in the time cycle. They're just working, and that's why you separate out sometimes the longer bet, bigger bet innovation teams separate. So I think once you really start crossing that 50 to 60 people mark, I think you will take a portfolio approach, figure out what's the right investment mix at your stage, in your market, depending on your competition. Like, there's so many factors. I don't think anybody can come up with a good answer. I think that's where founders' intuition matters. And then how do you make those bets? So you're not just stuck in the today, here and now, but you're also able to build for the future.
Absolutely. Slightly different question. So when you look at products today, and humans are adopting products, right? They use products, they learn products and navigate through products. And sometimes it becomes overwhelming, right? Like, there's so much product being thrown at humans, it's hard to understand everything. So do you see a role of AI there, like, to improve or boost product adoption?
No, absolutely. I am extremely bullish on. I mean, I'm the kind of person who never sees a tutorial, who never reads the manual. I think I want to like just figure it out on my own. Unfortunately, I don't think all the products are meant for that kind of consumption. Sometimes they just, then I'll spend like 8 to 10 hours trying to figure out how do I configure this thing and wish I had read the manual, right? But I would say that's where let's look at one of the most successful products in the recent past, ChatGPT. The whole point was extremely easy to use, extremely intuitive. But when you look at more complex products, especially business to business products, it is hard to build something that's simple and straightforward. There is a bunch of things that have to be set up the right way. You have to figure out how to use it the right way, etc. And I think that's where being able to match it with AI that can actually guide the user more intelligently is extremely powerful. So whether I think I'll break it down to, hey, when you get a new user, how do you get them to get those first few baby steps and get to them to their first end-to-end working successful implementation or whatever they want to achieve? The second thing is, okay, how do I then layer on complexity? It's not just a basic workflow, but can I help this person do more complex workflow? How can I teach this person the bells and whistles of how my power users then use this product? How can I help this person graduate into becoming a power user? And lastly, how can I help this person become extremely productive by maybe automating the most commonly used workflows? How can I make those workflows available where they are versus having to go to a particular surface where they may not be able to get to all that, like on the phone or whatever, right? So I think there is so much that needs to happen for going from somebody who lands on to the sign up page to actually becoming a power user. And I think today's it's done either through tutorials, a lot of emails that nobody opens, or having the person figure it out and actually do training or stuff like that. But I think there is potential to actually use AI to change this completely,
Absolutely.
which I think is going to be very incredible, because at the end of the day, the value for a business is not this person who logged in for the first time and churned away. The value in the business is all those power users, and you really want that small catch of power users that you can monetize over.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're also moving away slowly from teach me how to do it to just do it for me. Like I don't have
Good,
time.
absolutely.
So there's a big role there. So moving on a little bit, Krishna, would love to hear your perspectives on AI, which I'm sure like our audience will be very interested to know. So of all the breakthroughs you have seen in AI so far, what do you think has the biggest potential, and what industries do you think can benefit the most from AI?
Makes sense. So I think when I look at AI today, a lot of the magic has still been happening in the foundational infrastructure pieces. I mean, people are buying all these GPUs in droves, and obviously those companies are extremely valued, stuff like that. But I think the movement of that value to actual day-to-day productivity, I think is still kind of early in that journey. I think that is the part which is most exciting for me, because I think that's where these success shovels will move into actual capturing the golds and diamonds hidden in our day-to-day workflows and our lives, right? And I think when I look at that, especially as we move into the application layer, obviously agents and AI employees, etc., are all the rage. But I think really driving productivity at that higher level layer, I think is going to be fascinating. And the way I would think, at least I think about it, is we're still early in that journey. I don't think we've had time to assimilate and really understand the value that some of these latest developments bring, and how it changes productivity. Like, if you look at the last waves, it took a few years for us to really understand how to use them before either the largest internet businesses of the world or the largest mobile first businesses of the world like Uber and DoorDash came into. So I feel the real innovation is still ahead of us, and I think it'll be truly transformative. I can talk maybe a little bit more about like one of the areas which I think there's been a lot of discussion, right? AI employees and AI teammates and applications and stuff like that. So at least again, we talked about jobs to be done. I think that's a very good first principles framework to apply to all of these things. I think the way people approach these AI employees is like, it's like it replaces this person fully. And I don't think that's quite how it works. In my mind, if you look at any employee in one of these companies, let's take an engineer. The engineer has so many different jobs to be done. The engineer is probably fixing bugs, refactoring code, writing larger features, or writing a technical design document, reviewing other people's code, giving feedback on these design documents and stuff like that, tracking execution of projects within their own team, uh, figuring out what is the next set of features to build with the product manager, helping solve a real customer pain point, debugging a production issue that came out. I think there are like at least 100 different jobs to be done that an engineer performs. What I don't know is if we'll have one AI engineer that can do everything, but I think we might end up having very powerful AI-based agents, applications, whatever you want to call it, for each of these jobs to be done that can really drive much higher productivity for some of them. Like, I think we are already seeing the early versions of some. Like, for instance, I think you can have, if you use if I use Cursor, it's a great co-pilot. It helps me improve the speed at which I'm writing code. But at the same time, I think there are other people who are building like a completely automated system for maybe refactoring code or taking care of security vulnerabilities. So I think my sense is it's not like one AI engineer product that, rules. There's the one ring that rules all. I think it is a combination of a lot of different jobs to be done, and each will have their owners. At least that's my thing. And that's true of all, employee classes. I don't think there's going to be one AI SDR.
Very interesting. I think the space is changing so rapidly, and everybody is hearing these terms everywhere, right? AI agents, teammates, what will applications do in the agentic world? So it's great to hear your perspective on that. One last question, Krishna. For anybody building in the AI space right now, any AI entrepreneur or aspiring AI entrepreneur, what advice would you give?
I think the best advice I can give is do it now. Because if you're aspiring, I think now is the time when I think what is unique about right now is that there is a ton of white space. Most of the times when people start with a particular problem, you pull on that thread and then you actually end up landing somewhere like very, right? But I think the white space is what helps you land that eventual outcome versus what you originally started with. So I think there is definitely a lot of white space. Of course, there's a ton of funding for accomplished people who are starting new companies. So I think the combination of those two makes it much easier to take that risk and to take that bet. So I think the right time to do it is now versus say 3 or 5 years from now. I'm sure outstanding companies will be built 5 years from now too. But I think now is a great time to start from at least where I kind of see this. And that's what I would recommend people.
So do it now. That's the key takeaway.
Do it now.
Um,
Do it.
Just do it. Some quick rapid fire questions. We'll keep it very short. What's the most exciting AI breakthrough you have seen in the past year?
I was blown away with Cursor and Claude.
AI in 5 years. What is one thing you hope to see or accomplish?
All of this talk translates into real measurable productivity gains or value creation that you can actually measure from an ROI.
What's one AI tool or technology you cannot live without?
ChatGPT.
Which company or person in AI do you find most inspiring right now?
Mark Zuckerberg, just because of the pace at which he's executing.
SaaS incumbents versus new AI companies. Any thoughts on who wins?
I think incumbents will take the low-hanging fruit. If you're just building a small layer on top of something existing, as a new company, incumbents have the advantage of having a treasure trove of data, having customer relations is hard to beat. But I think new companies can figure out completely new workflows or completely new value exchange that I don't think incumbents can do, which is where I think the bigger breakthroughs will come and the larger companies will be created.
Interesting. Applications versus AI agents. What is your take on?
I think AI agents for specific jobs to be done, best in class.
Awesome. Well, this was great, Krishna. So much rich learning for all of us here, coming from your entrepreneurship days, engineering leadership, as well as building companies and angel investing across a bunch of different companies. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, it was an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me. I loved having this discussion.
All right, great, Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.